Hey guys, Khalid from Cricket Fanatics magazine here with another episode of the podcast show. And I've got my co hosts with me. I'm going to explain to you guys what's going to happen going forward. We're going to have rotating co hosts going down the line. So you're going to see some very familiar faces and some new faces that are going to be co hosting this show with me for the rest of the time that we are on this planet, I guess. So let's start with this particular show. I think let's get straight into it because I think we need to talk about this and there's a lot to cover. And I'll just give the fans just an idea. I see a comment from Bevan already. Bevan, it's really hard for us to get Graeme Smith on the show. We have to go through a lot of people to get to Graeme. He's not a person that generally will speak on these things, but I'll see what I can do. I mean, I'm not going to make any promises because I don't think right now is a time that they're going to allow him to speak on a platform like this. But let's see in the future, maybe we can get him on a show down the line. I hope so. We're trying to get currently the journalists are trying to get a press conference with the people at CSA to find out more information. They're working hard on that. We'll see what's going to happen. But let's just talk about this because this is something hectic. And I can see people are talking about, for example, MS Dhoni has retired. And yes, that is a massive thing. We'll maybe talk about that at this time. But this last week has been a roller coaster ride. And I think it's one of the hardest weeks in South African cricket, from my opinion. I mean, since I've covered it. I think other than that ball tampering scandal, I think the amount of things that have gone down on social media and the attention South African cricket has been getting and the issues has been tremendous. I think everybody's been involved over here from every walks of life, and it's been quite a hectic ride this last week. And it all kind of started when it actually started quite a while back, as you guys will know, with regards to Lungi Ngidi's comments coming out, and then the Black Lives Matter movement, and them kneeling, etc., at the 3TC cricket. And then after that, I think it's kind of just gave people the backlash from those events, kind of just made people want to talk out more and more and more. And then Thami Tsolekile did his interview on Robert Marawa. We have the video where I play his comments about Graeme Smith on our channel. You can check it out in our daily news playlist in the playlist section. And then Graeme Smith had a rebuttal. So there is a consensus, guys, that Thami shouldn't speak because people believe that he cheated in regards to the match fixing and that he shouldn't have a say. There's that sort of consensus happening around in different pockets on social media. Then there are people that are strongly behind him and support him. And I come in here as a neutral, and I have to be unbiased with regards to this if I'm going to cover it as a journalist. And you kind of have to sit back and look at all the facts. And I think they are two separate issues. The match fixing is the one thing, and then the racial abuse is another thing. I don't think they're a combined thing. So maybe let's just talk about Thami's conversation that he had on Robert Marawa's show. With regards to the unfair treatment, with regards to Saka first, I think that's what spurred everything off, and that sparked everything, and that sparked the conversation. Guys, what are your thoughts? Let's go with the middle of the screen and then move to the right to Mpho. So let's start with Ravi.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I was wondering if Mpho is actually in the middle on your screen and I'm in the middle of my own. I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. But good evening, everybody. Good evening, South Africa, India, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And mad love for Sepo Tayela for saying that he's got love for myself and Mpho as well. So thank you, kind sir, for this comment as well. We're going to do the NBA thing as well. This is a serious topic, guys. We can't be laughing here. So coming back to Thami Tsolekile, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that, yes, he's had a very sordid past in history. His reputation has certainly preceded himself in many a cricketing circle, both local and provincial, and certainly at franchise level, and very recently at national level as well. So there hasn't been good publicity for the bulk of his career. However, I think what I wanted to share with this panel as well as the audience that's watching tonight is that just because you've committed a number of transgressions doesn't mean that the other stuff, the general mistreatment that you've experienced leading up to your legitimate playing career is irrelevant. So I think what we as South Africans need to do is take a step back and actually isolate what's actually happened in the history, in Thami's history specifically, and say to ourselves, yes, he was implicated in the match fixing scandal. He went through a trial. Thami has indicated that there's new evidence that's going to be coming into light very soon. It's up to him to take that to the next step with his new representation, right? That's one thing. The other thing is that the mistreatment, you must almost decompartmentalize it into a separate entity on its own. You need to treat it in its own right. You can't just say, because this guy was found guilty of match fixing, none of the other stuff is relevant. Because that's the feeling I'm getting when I'm reading various Twitter comments. That's when people have been engaging with me. It's certainly been the case here in Johannesburg when people have engaged with me about this matter as well. It's quite a controversial topic in many respects. But it doesn't mean that the general mistreatment, the time is experienced from schoolboy cricket going all the way to provincial and eventual national selection has never existed before. And I for one, am very glad that he had the opportunity to tell his story, because he almost disappeared into the night 4 or 5 years ago, and none of the stuff was obviously at the fore. So I'm relieved that he's got a chance to tell a story, and I'm pretty certain that he's not the only one that has a story in a similar regard to be told as well.
I think, Ravi, I think you hit the nail on the head on that. I think for me, what I took away, and I loved how Robert Marawa on his show compartmentalized the issues. It was Thami and the match fixing first up, Thursday, 2 weeks ago on a Thursday, and then on the Tuesday, and then it was Thami as with the racial abuse that he experienced, and it was, and we must remind people that was in the 90s, because Thami early 90s in under 19s, he was, I think it was 99 when he was in that squad. But it was just after the dawn, so a lot of people, a lot of the attitudes that were towards him and the way in which the team was segregated, and he slept in a 2-bedroom house on the floor in a house in KwaZakele, on the floor is something that happened in the 90s, because that's what was known. So I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that's the one part, and then the other part was obviously Thami's experience in the Proteas, and what he did in 2016 and 2015 does not excuse him from having a voice to speak about his truth, and his experiences in his cricketing career. And I think a lot of people associate, and this is something that normally happens in South Africa in general across all races, is that when you look at the source, you try to look at the credibility of the source, but you never interrogate the information that's being provided. And so if Thami speaks about the fact that he got left out of the side and he felt bad because everybody and their uncle said he was going to play, they'll say, no, that's rubbish because you're a cheat, right? And that takes away from his case. A lot of people have come to me and said, but that takes away from the Black Lives Matter movement. It does not, because how can a story of one man take away the entire generations or years and decades of black I don't know, otherment. I think that's the best word. Black people have been othered, and I talk about black across all the colors and all the races. So I think for me, what was important was, and I think this is Thami's right now. Thami needs to prove with this evidence that he says has come to light. He needs to match the evidence to what he said, because you've got a report from Judge Mwepe, which is very, it's clear and you can see, and he needs to prove to us what he's saying is true. And I think that's where everyone is because we already have this piece of information that you can prove it already and you can ask him, but you also need to understand that he needs to then bring out this evidence, because we need to create a space in South Africa where people can talk and people can be heard. He said this in 2016, nobody listened to him. there was a Times Live, a Sunday Times article about Thami saying he didn't do this, and he kind of said everything he said this week in that article was written there, but nobody took it for granted, because who believes a criminal? And so the situation is that, and I think we don't know, as the public and as the media, yes, we have all this information, but we need to listen first. I think that's the ultimate thing for this week, is that we need to learn to listen, take it on board, don't be emotional, just take whatever it is it said, and then go and interrogate it with the evidence. The thing about what made Thami even harder was that he never provided the evidence to us up front. So we all had to listen, take it in, and then say, but there's a report. And what I think Rob, I would have wanted Rob to do, was to try and interrogate certain aspects of the report against what Thami was saying. His experiences as a black man hold weight, and they are valid. And that's the reason why Black Lives Matter is there, is that our experiences as black people in environments in white spaces such as cricket are as valid and as important as anybody else's experience, and our voices need to be heard. And from the other side, with the rebuttal from Graeme Smith, I kind of felt that, it was a defense first mechanism, which is what everybody does. When your name pops up in the media, you want to defend, but this is not the time to defend. This is the time to listen, to reflect, and also figure out what it is, because we're not accusing you. People assume that everyone's being accused of blatant racism. They're not. They're just saying that these are our experiences. And it's hard to prove in South Africa, because with black people in the majority, you find yourself in a situation where it's hard for you to say, no, I was racist, because there's 90% of us here. And everything is in a subtle manner. And all, as Thami said, all he was asking for was an apology, an acknowledgement that even though he was unaware that this may have happened, and then an apology, and to say, okay, there's a way for us to move forward. And I think that's where everyone's lines are crossing, is that everyone's trying to defend everyone. There's the people who want to defend Smith because he's a great captain and South Africa need him, and we don't deny that. He's a great captain. His numbers speak for themselves. But there's the other that says, but what about our experiences? What about Thami's experience? What about Makai's experience? What about Mondi's experience? Do they matter? And the fact that we keep on defending those experiences and saying, no, but that's not true, here are the stats, that's not true, we're taking away, we're denigrating, demoting people's lived experiences. And that's what we shouldn't do as a human race. We're humans first, and let's lead with that. Don't lead with, no, but you're accusing so and so. No one was being accused. All it was, and Thami said it beautifully, Graeme Smith, were you not aware? And it was asking Graeme Smith if he was aware of these things. And all Graeme Smith needed to say was, I wasn't aware. I realized that it may have come across like this. I am sorry, and we need to work on behavioral changes to move it forward, that it doesn't happen again. That's all it is, and that's how all of this is.
Yeah, so we knew that this is going to happen. That if this particular thing, it's very difficult to prove someone was racist unless you have witnesses, or unless you have some proof that they were directly racist to you. It's very difficult to prove it, I feel. So with regards to that, I think it was always going to be a he said situation. So that's what it actually ended up being. Thami Tsolekile came out and said a few things about Graeme. Graeme came out and denied it. Now, we don't know. Now, I'm going to be the devil's advocate over here, and I'm trying to represent all people involved over here. So no matter what cultures we come from or what backgrounds we come from, I'm trying to just be the person to ask the questions. And yeah, I'm trying to be partial and ask the questions. There are some questions that are coming on board with regards to this and saying, are people that are complaining about these matters just jumping on the BLM movement bandwagon, or has it just stirred them and motivated them to ask these, or to come clean? Now they have the courage to do so. Because I mean, with regards to Makai and Tini, people couldn't believe it, and they're posting pictures of Makai and Tini happy, smiling, taking wickets with people like Puta Dippenaar hugging him, etc. And there's people out there that are saying, how could you be lonely? They can't understand his story. So what's your guys' vision on that, and what's your opinion on that?
Me first. Okay. All right, cool. So I have to be honest, I think at first, and this is me trying to be impartial, so when I first started seeing these sort of inklings, these mentions online of certain players coming in saying, "This was my experience." It was very minute at first. And suddenly, after Hussein's comment in response to CSA's positioning on BLM, suddenly you saw this catalyst just create this explosion. And then virtually most of the veterans that I've learned to grow and appreciate over my time as a cricket fan come out and say, actually, what you saw on TV wasn't an accurate reflection of what I experienced as a player in the change rooms, or what I experienced as a player in the inner circles, as it were. I mean, very unique players in the form of like Garnet Kruger, very recently SABC. He's come out saying what was supposed to be my debut tour, which was Australia, was also met with a bit of a high degree of mistreatment as well. But just to answer the question, my gut feeling at first was telling me, you know what, I think there's more to this than just jumping on a campaign. I think some people just want some closure, especially after having a lengthy career without rising to the lengths that you aspire to. So when you're a sportsman, you have a vision in your mind that, you know, I'm going to make it to the highest level in this particular game. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen for all of us. I think when it comes to certain instances, like we saw actual Prince break down in emotion when he was talking about his brother Lloyd Prince, who apparently is a much better batsman and he is from Galvindale Cricket Club. That for me epitomizes this whole situation. There's so many of these guys that were right there but never got the golden ticket to represent the country. And we have to hear these stories because I think we've been living in this sort of euphoric cloud, this Rainbow Nation cloud, since the 95 World Cup, Rugby World Cup, where we were told, let's be unified without actually confronting the actual issues that are in front of us. We sort of jumped on this bandwagon, and sure, that's a very good thing that happened. But at the same token, we don't realize the challenges, the difficulties that people of color had in multiple sports, not just cricket. We're talking about rugby, even football, believe it or not, even the athletics games, all of those games. People have had challenges from affordability, from distance, and just general support from the community. It's differing in terms of the various communities that take the field in certain games. I mean, I think what was the biggest eye opener for me as well was Thami's comments on Fikile and Pulula as well. I thought when he mentioned Fikile, I thought, okay, these guys are on the same wavelength, they're on the same page, and it turned out to be something completely different. He didn't have the support of the Minister of Sports as much as he would have liked at the time. That was Thami's opinion. He declared on the Marawa show. And that for me was a huge eye-opener. When you have all of these kind of variables against you as a sportsman, how do you progress? How do you actually bring on the bacon? How do you support your family? And those are the sort of things that I'm glad people are talking about right now. It's about time, actually. I think we've been... I can tell you, Mpho, you know I'm from Cape Town, right? Khalid doesn't believe I'm from Cape Town, but I lived there for 26 years. So I can tell you, I've been to cricket clubs, prestigious cricket clubs, which doubted players of color, which have said that those guys aren't good enough to represent Western Province at the time, let alone on a national level. I've heard those conversations. I've heard those astonishing comments from people who are so ignorant that they actually haven't even seen the guy play. But here they are making these what is the term, couch critic sort of commentary. You know, I mean, it's just unacceptable, and that level of ignorance needs to go out the window in order for us to really progress.
Yes, look, I think in this period that we find ourselves in, this social media generation, it has enabled a lot of people and a lot of people's individual stories to travel farther than people have expected previously. And I think it was spoken today. And funny enough, Ashel Prince shared this video of Rio Ferdinand and Trent Alexander-Arnold talking. And Rio makes a point in the social media generation with they never had the social media generation. So every comment they had to make had to go through a journalist, Khalid, yourself, to write the story and hopefully get their point across. And what has happened in South Africa, and I think what the Black Lives Matter movement did was that over the past couple of years, 5-6 years, incidents have been happening of, I don't know, subtle racism in white spaces. And I speak of white spaces like private schools in South Africa, in corporates in South Africa, and now obviously finally in sport. You know, we shuddered to think how Camp Staldraad would have been documented had we been in a social media generation. And also the 2015 World Cup, how the way in which the rugby team looked, and the whole Vernon Philander issue in the cricket side, how that would have done in this social media generation. I think it would have grown legs, and it would have been would have gotten a lot more as deep as what we're seeing this week. You know, and for me, that's the power of what social media has done. The stories that came out, and this is where the interesting thing is. Those former white players who were fighting Louis Ngidi used the social media platform, and in doing so, they invited everybody else in, and that is where the crux of it. We're not jumping on a bandwagon. It's our lives. You know, Black Lives Matter is a movement that's been there since 2013. It has died and gone up and died and gone up. And just only now, because of the power that social media has and the fact that we're all at home and we're supposed to be sitting indoors with because of the virus, everyone is on their fingertips and everyone knows what happened to George Floyd. But then they go back, but wait, I live in a country that's 90% Black, but I still feel an outsider in white spaces. I work in corporate America, I feel an outsider in white spaces. I find myself not being able to trust my employers, not being able to trust my colleagues who are white because of the fact that, you know, sometimes you sit there going, wait, did they just say something that could be slightly racist? Is that a microaggression? And when you bring it up, you'll be told, no, it's a boys' school thing or it's a banter thing. And I come from a boys' school, and those microaggressions existed throughout my 5 years. I've just had to deal with all of those, you know, and so. You know, coming back to what the players are saying, it's just that now everybody's listening because the social media generation is now ready and waiting to hear. You know, a retweet, a click, a like. We can get to 1 million, 5 million, 10 million people in the space of 10 minutes. And the great thing about it is that because we didn't have live sport, this was the sport that was being spoken about. You know, Makai wouldn't have gotten any airtime on SABC had the Proteas been playing overseas. But because everyone's at home, it's a perfect storm, essentially. And I'm loving it because it helps us protect the players currently in the system. What happened to Vuma at the beginning of the year, and what happened to Zubair Hamza, and what's happening to all the players in the system, Wandile Makwetu, who we've heard, you know, he has an attitude problem, and there are other stories coming out that no, he didn't have an attitude problem. And he goes on to be Rookie of the Year at the Knights. Those type of situations can no longer happen under our watch. And I love the fact that it came out now because it gives Cricket South Africa and the South African cricket community as a whole to be able to fix this thing. You know, we're not jumping on bandwagons and we're not being communist. I hate that communist line. That really infuriates me because at the end of the day, we're people, we're human beings. If you think I'm a communist, it means that I am a threat to you as a Black man. And that's how I felt, and how many cricketers and how many Black people have felt in this country whenever they enter white spaces. It's as though you're a threat. And that's what these players are documenting. They're telling you their story. They're telling you how they felt. They're telling you and there's a leadership thing that has to come in here that people need to understand is one of the key things to leadership is how your people and how you're the people that you lead and the people around you perceive you. That's a very important leadership lesson that all of us need to take. We need to understand how we are viewed in the world because you could offend people by the way you do things, and a lot of people in white South Africa will say, no, but this is how I've always done it. This is how I've always been. I'm a joker. I'm doing this and that. But when it comes across to someone, it's offensive. Monde being told that he's only allowed to play when Makaya goes can be refuted because he's played 5 games with Makaya. But at the time when he entered the system, he was told that you needed to wait for Makaya. There could be other reasons why he played with Makaya, injuries and everything else, but he knew going in that it was either me or Makaya. And that's what a lot of black players are facing, even today and throughout the system. And that's why I love the fact that the black players and the coaches stood up, because we need to protect the current black players in the system, the black players coming up, to make sure that we no longer get these snide, subtle comments. And cricket's always a subjective game. That for me has always been the thing. You can look at someone's numbers, they can be great, but someone can tell you, no, he's busy bullying provincial players, or he's playing on flat tracks. Meanwhile, it's just their way of saying that, no, he doesn't fit the role because I don't see him in that role. I want someone else in there. And for me, that's where we need to move forward. We need to start challenging people's mindsets and the way people think, because at the end of the day, if you call this a bandwagon, we're going to be back here in 2 years. I can guarantee you that. And in those 2 years, it could be one of the guys who was currently in the setup writing a book about how he was treated in a period around here. And so we need to be, Cricket South Africa and the South African media need to be very careful about how they tread these things. And it's treading it with empathy and understanding, and seek to listen, because we're not asking for you to change who you are. We're just asking you to accommodate us. We understand it's very hard, but it's just the situation of, I hear you. How can I change my behavior to make it more accommodating to you? And that's all it is. That's all we're asking.
Yeah. So let's talk about that way forward, because I think that's the main thing that people really want to hear. So recently we posted a video. You guys must check out our daily news show. It's a new show that we just started now, and I was sent a press release the morning about 40 black players that have come together, previous coaches and players that have come together, and they spoke to CSA president. And they basically started a group to basically try to eradicate this unbiased and this unfairness that is happening in South African cricket still today. Now, I know a lot of people want to speak about it, and they want to say, no, it's sport. Players must be picked on merit. And that's a major talking point that's going to come out, and that the quota system must be abandoned and people mustn't have the quota system anymore. It baffles me how people are burning the Springbok jerseys. It shocks me that people don't want to support cricket anymore. It shocks me that people don't want to support South African sport anymore, because of the comments that have been happening, because of people supporting the BLM movement. It's something that I want to raise over here, is that we've seen how the world has reacted to BLM. I haven't seen a hectic response to the NBA. Not the NBA, sorry, to the Premier League doing what they did, to the Formula One doing what they did, to rugby doing what they did. I'm talking about overseas now, in places where Black Africans are or Black people are a minority. We come back to South Africa where Black people are the majority, and it's creating a storm on social media. Obviously, social media, everybody can just leave their comments whenever they want to do. I think that it's about, someone asked in the comment section over here, they said at the end of the day, how do we move forward, sorting out cricket if possible? And this particular movement that I was talking about was speaking about bringing cricket back into the townships. Now, we know that KFC Mini Cricket is doing a great job doing that. We know that, but I think that still the majority top schools in the country need to provide more opportunities or privileges for for people of color to have an opportunity to be on the level playing field as someone else that is white. And that's the simple truth about the situation. We can't be in a generation where you only have 15 people of color out of 168 boys at school, at a top boys school, have 12 or 13 or maybe 20 people of color in the entire thing when we are the majority. It can't be, it shouldn't, I feel that it shouldn't be like that. And one of my observations or opinions that I have, and don't shoot me for doing this, but to remember that this is not the views of Cricket Fanatics magazine. This is my view. This is Ravi's view. This is Mpho's view. This is not the views of our company. We're trying to create a space where people can talk openly and freely, whether you agree or disagree. We want you to hear your comments. But similarly to what Michael Holding said, when Michael Holding made that statement and said that white lives have always mattered, we just now want black lives to matter too. Similarly to the people saying that there shouldn't be a quota system ever since cricket existed in South Africa, there was a quota system. It was just 100% white. And now we're asking there to be a split of 55% black African. It's not going to change, or 55% black, sorry. It's not going to change overnight. It's something that's going to take some time to ease us in and to get better again. And I think by creating, to expanding the sport in the majority of the country will improve the sport. It naturally will. And I think that's something that we need to do. And that's something that this organization or group is trying to do. We had Alistair write a great column. I don't know if you guys have read it, but the guys out there, please go and read it. He's talking about a TRC, that cricket in South Africa need a TRC. They need to get into a room. And I think Graeme alluded to this as well a little bit in his statement that he had, where they need to get into a room and discuss this. And now I'm actually almost happy that there is a group or an organization now that's representing the players of color, because now those group of people can come into a room and they can speak amongst the presidents and amongst the director of cricket and the coaches and talk the issues out and come to a solution. It should be they've done week training camp, they've done week conferences where they've gone to, I don't know, Vitivacha Islands and they had like
Robben Island.
no, not Robben Island. I don't know. They've flown to different venues with nice conferences for certain issues. This is something that they should take a week, maybe take a week out of their schedule, and these people that are representing these groups need to go talk these things out.
But Khalid,
what is your thought about? So Ravi, what is your thought about that groups that's been formed, and maybe having a TRC to take us forward?
Okay, so are you referring to that culture camp as well? Are you putting it on top of it?
No. So the culture camp is something different.
Okay.
I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about the
administrators,
ex-coaches, the administrators, the ex-coaches, the ex-players, all of those people that have been affected by these things. Because I don't think the newer generation, I'm talking about now the SA under 19 teams of the last 3 seasons or so, or those generations, see color as much as it used to be in the past. I think that it's starting to filter out a lot more. You'll hear white players give players of color huge credit, and vice versa.
I think that group plays a vital role, especially considering the experiences that they've had as individual players in the system. They're going to play a fundamental role in terms of preventing those type of instances of ever happening again. So there's going to be great inclusivity. There's going to be a greater conscience in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as diversity in general. I think there's always been this thing of, we're a team, we South Africa, we're the Rainbow Nation, but once it hits 5 o'clock, we're all going to go off in our different cars and do our own thing. We'll form our own social groups and stuff like that. I'm not saying that these guys must form like a sorority. Sorry, what's the other one? A fraternity or anything like that. Sorry, sorority is for the female variety, of course. But I'm saying that there needs to be more connections made. There needs to be more advancements in that respect, because it baffles me that for somebody who has played as long as Graeme Smith for 11 years to be oblivious to the fact that you got Makai and Tini running from the ground back to the hotel, from the hotel back to the ground again, because he's feeling lonely. Not once. What that tells me is that he hasn't at one point had an open dialogue with Makai and say, "Hey, dude, what's happening? What seems to be affecting you?" And in fairness, that was in the late 90s. It was before Graeme Smith's time in his defense. But that tells you that the previous captains didn't take cognizance of it either. So that sort of changing, that sort of thinking needs to change immediately. We need to have involvement of former players, coaches that have been in the system that have been affected by this. These dialogues need to be encouraged, need to be happen. I don't know why is it as South Africans we suddenly scared of having an open dialogue about race. We
Yeah.
did it in the 90s, right? And suddenly, 30 years later, we're scared of having a discussion. You know, and that's not no one is going to come up with pitchforks and torches burning in the night. This is not a Frankenstein movie,
I
right?
didn't
So
do that.
you don't do that, right? No one's going to do that. It's about having an open and honest discussion. If
What's
the
that
younger
movie?
generation,
With that,
the younger
what's that
generation,
movie again? I can't remember what it is. There's that movie that was out recently that they do that where there's like a cult following. And they go to like this farm or something. What is it called again? I can't remember. With Emily Blunt, I think, is in it.
A quiet place.
Yeah, Quiet Place. Yeah, that's those.
The guy
Okay.
from the office is there. That's like mind blown.
Anyway, continue now.
No, but I think I don't know why it is that we always get tensed up and not willing to have those conversations. Understanding why is it that a player of color is having these kind of challenges. Have the conversation. Understand it's okay as a white person to ask why is it that you're feeling a certain way. Why are you feeling aggrieved by all of this? It's fine to ask the question. It's fine not to understand, and understanding will be provided to you. But it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't mean that people are going to think any less of you. It's ultimately an educational experience as well for a number of people in privileged environments, and that goes beyond the white community. There are privileged environments which also have people of color in it that might not be aware of all of this.
And
So
that's the
these are
key there. That's the key. The key there, that you are saying is the privilege. We need to level the playing field with regards to privilege. I'm
exactly
privileged. I'm someone, and I'll admit it. I was someone that went to Rondebosch Boys High School. My parents gave me a good education. They had the ability to be able to do so. So I'm just as guilty. It's about leveling the playing field. So we need to be able to give those opportunities in the best power that you can. I mean, we at Cricket Fanatics magazine want to tell the untold stories and give the players that don't get the same exposure. We want to try to give them exposure and try to give them a platform where they can be themselves. Mpho, how do we move forward over here in South African cricket? We had
Okay.
Robbie P on the show. He spoke about bringing things into the townships, etc.,
Yes,
etc.
I'm
You
with
guys,
Robbie P. So Robbie P actually has a player who comes from my township at the Warriors. That's Lisiba
okay.
and I live in Fort Louis right now. I did go to St. John's, but because cricket's expensive, I couldn't play the game. I chose to play basketball because it was a cheaper game and it was easier for my family to be able to support it. Things like that, because I'm a scholarship kid. That's what it was. But I love the game and I'm talking about it now, and that's how we work our way back. It took me pretty much 15 years to be able to get back into this thing, and building credibility as a person who hasn't played cricket is tough, but it's fine. But on your question of where do we move forward, I think you need emotional intelligence. I think everybody needs to humble themselves and listen. I like the TRC idea. The only problems with the TRC idea is that if people start becoming defensive, it's not going to happen. I love the fact that we've got a group of former black players and coaches speaking on behalf, because they know best how to navigate the system of transformation. If people are still questioning transformation in 2020, my question to you is, will you be comfortable having a lily white South African team representing you at a World Cup? Because that's what's going to happen. The argument that Graeme, I think, put forward when he started now let me not say Graeme, but many people say transformation must be organically done, right? You must allow it to organically happen. It can't organically happen if you don't have clubs in the townships. The townships used to have the clubs. Right? I understand, because if you look at the feeder system now into South African cricket, it's private schools. It's white private schools. And for you to be able to represent your country as a black man player of color, you need to be the best black cricketer ever to be able to make it, i.e. Kagiso, i.e. Lungi Gidi's probably getting up there. You need to have no question behind you as to whether you need to be in the team because they need you. But if you're a white man, you're allowed to be average and be able to play in the side. And that's what needs to change. That's the mindset that needs to change because we're protecting white players in the system because the system produces a whole lot of white players. And then we get angry when white players want to play for Ireland, want to play for Netherlands. They might as well go. I don't have an issue with that because I want a system that identifies the best player across all races. And if you're an average player and you can't make it in South Africa, I will gladly, by all means, say it's okay. You can go overseas if they haven't pinpointed you. Because I know the system takes care of the exceptional, and that's what it should do. And the question is that, and that's a question a lot of us are asking, is that as a black person, you were taught growing up that you need to be the best in your field. You can't be number 2, you must always be number 1. You must always be that black person who is chosen. At St. John's in my year, there were 10 black people. 10 black people in a class of 150. Best believe that first team only had a few players of color. There were a lot of Indian players in that side as well. But what your question you ask is, how are you going to bring black players through the system when we intake 10 black kids a year? That's obviously moved on and it's becoming better. But that's the thing. And so the only way you can do it is if you open up cricket in the townships. But now here's the issue. You can do cricket in the township, but the quality of black player that's going to come out compared to the quality of white player that's going to come out is going to be vastly different because white players have private coaches. White players have their fathers who have played the game and they can teach them. What needs to happen, and I think the black coaches need to ask, and they need to push this forward, is that those former white national team players, and this the CSA need to align themselves with a township near where they live. And as we grow these cricket clubs, they coach those kids. They need to learn to coach those kids. They need to learn to see how those kids live and their experiences. And this should be a start. This TRC should be a start of that because that's the only way we can change this. We keep on, it's about equitable distribution of opportunities, not equality. Equality means everyone gets an equal shot, but nobody in South Africa gets an equal shot, especially if you're black. Your chances are diminished the moment you walk into a room of white people and they realize that you're not like them. And that needs to change. And the only way that can change is if you have a program where you are forced, even if when the Proteas are on their downtime, that white players go to the townships and go train those kids in the clubs. Because that's the only way you can build it, because that's the only way those skills, because there's so many subtle things that you learn as a batsman, your foot movement, your eye movement, that white players always get and black players don't. Those kids who are playing for Curtis Campos, playing for Ireland, all those kids who have gone overseas right now recently have all benefited from private coaching. Private coaching is expensive, but it's not, you can't.
It is damn expensive. It is unbelievable. Expensive.
Yes, but that's what needs to change, because you're not going to change. You need to flood the system with a representation of this country. You can't be flooding the system with white players, because the moment, for instance, if we took away the transformation tag tomorrow, we'd probably go down to 4 players of color in a team of 11, and that's 7 white players and 4 black players. Does that sit well with you? It doesn't sit well with me. And that's not the answer. The answer is figuring out a way to allow coaches to provide the best 11, and that may be giving players of color opportunities that white players have always had. So, for instance, take a black 11 to go tour the West Indies, to go tour England, and that's a domestic 11 to go tour around the world, so they can get an experience in the off-season instead of them sitting at home. Because white players have the ability to get a passport and go to the UK, or they have the ability to go in the off-season and sit in the UK and play in those leagues. And that's the thing, it's a money thing. That's how people get better. Guys like Aidan Markham have spent seasons in Hampshire, whereas Temba Bavuma, 29 years old, 7 years, 6 years, Aidan Markham senior, only got his opportunity last year to play.
Yeah.
He was one of the only few non-Colpack black players who got selected as an overseas pro. And that's what needs to change. You need to create those opportunities that that the privilege that white players have in the system needs to be replicated for black players too. If you identify a crop of 5 or 6 black players, throw them a Jacques Tallis, throw them a Paul Harris if they're spinners, or throw them somebody who is a great that they can learn from and that can mentor them. Because that's the only thing. White players have mentors, black players have mentors, but those black mentors have not played international cricket.
Exactly.
You've got Jeffrey Tayana, Enoch Nkwe. They know the game and they know it really well. They can push your game forward, but we keep on being told that no, they don't have international experience. Well, get people to work with them. And I love the fact that Graeme got guys like Jacques Callis in and everything else. But whatever's afforded to white kids needs to be afforded to black kids across the spectrum even more. Yeah. You know, and that's the only way you can grow the game. And I'm okay with losing test matches with a representative national team, because I know that that's giving even people opportunities, because that's what people want in cricket. And also it's giving kids the ability to see themselves in their heroes. It's not about fighting. It's not about being defensive. It's about listening and hearing how you make people feel. And this TRC is important because the former white players who have perpetuated these subtle acts against these black players are the coaches of today. Are they still perpetuating those things today? My answer could possibly be yes. And so that's the reason why they need to sit down, they need to listen, and they need to be able to humble themselves and say, I may have caused you pain, I am sorry, and how do I change my behavior? And we will tell you, or the black players will tell you, how it is to change your behavior. They're not asking for money, they're not asking for recognition, they're just asking for an apology and an acknowledgement of your privilege. As a man in South Africa, I acknowledge that I have male privilege. That's the first thing I always acknowledge. And I know that how I walk in the world affects women. And that's the type of thing that people need to understand, is that as a white man, as a black man, as whatever it is, the way I walk in the world is seen in various ways. And so whenever I'm in rooms where I need to understand how, or bring people out, or understand where I'm at, I need to always go back to that and acknowledge my privilege and then act accordingly. That's all we ask. Because the way in which you act accordingly will enable you to afford opportunities to players of color without being subjective and without feeling like you've been hard done by, or that white kids also matter too. They do matter, but black people need to matter more now, up until the point where we get to everyone has equal chances. And that's the only way it can happen. And yeah, I think that's how I think we can move forward.
So guys, we're running out of time over here, so let me just get back into the comment section. Some of the comments over here, some great points made. Maybe we should do a part 2 of this, actually. I mean, I don't think it's the type of topic that you can't just do once. Yeah, so let's start with this one.
A Man United game, isn't it?
Hey, don't reveal my secrets. So here's one. It's an interesting one. I like the approach from working or sorting out cricket from bottom to top. A fair and transparent system must be put in place for all races to benefit. The hub system, in my view, is not working. So I think it's a bit too premature to say that it's not working. I think that the CSA hub system is a brilliant idea to create competitiveness within certain communities amongst other players on the same level as them. By growing that, you can be able to basically isolate or niche the different talents and quality in the country. And then maybe, if possible, we need more guys like Graeme October, someone who's a scout who goes into the townships, who goes to Pointerville. He has a club. He's head of club in Pointerville. He has a massive movement over there. He goes to Mitchell's, he goes to Hanover Park. He goes to all the places that he can find in the Western Cape. And when he has the opportunity to go to other parts of the country, he tries and does that. Someone that represents them, finds those players, brings them out of those situations, tries to get them into a top quality school, gives them the support they need as a father figure, and helps them prosper as players. We can see that he's done that with the likes of the influence he's had on guys like Sia Plaikis, on Bonga Makaka, and so many other Black African players and colored players in the Cape Town system. We need to get more of those type of scouts in the system to be able to give those opportunities. We can't be in a situation. When I went to school, we had 3 Black people in our whole grade of 168 people or 173 people, 3 Black Africans in our whole grade. One of them played sport. One.
This is Robert played.
So when I went, that was the time when I went to school, and I mean,
I was like,
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that we need to kind of improve this, because I
Yeah,
mean, for Mpho to say that he needed to get obviously he got a scholarship to go, and or bursary to go, to be able to go to a school like yours. What I want to ask you over here is, because the common thing is, like what I've been told when I did my research on the Pretoria schools, why they were banned from the CSA competition. My question to you, Mpho, is how do we improve this part? Because the common thing is going to be like, oh yes, but they can't fit in our culture. They don't speak our language. Why must we change our traditions? All of these questions are going to come up. For you firsthand, you'll be able to tell us what can we do to prepare kids. So I think that by putting them in the system young, it automatically grows them into it. And then
yeah.
obviously at first they're going to need the support. They're going to need the 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 um the
Mm.
support and the help to get them through initially. But I mean, it's worth it in the end of the day.
It is, but the problem is that, so I was on an academic scholarship, and so my performance statistics was marks, and my first year was tough because the culture is different, the tradition is different, and you get told you need to fit in or you need to ship out. This is the greatest opportunity that you've ever been afforded to you to get out of poverty, but you need to change who you are inherently in order to fit in. I had to pick up an accent. I had to make sure that I was the best black in school so that I could get the best opportunities, and it happened. A lot of my friends also got opportunities, but they struggled to fit in. And the biggest issue I have with the culture and the tradition argument, and that stems also into cricket, because cricket is very traditional and very cultural, is that there's a reason why the culture is there. It's to exclude people. There's a reason why the members at Lords are the members at Lords, is because you need somebody to allow you in. You can't just walk in willy-nilly. And that was to keep the riffraff out, or those unwanted people out. Now in 2020 in South Africa, you can't be holding on to culture when your culture was exclusionary and keeping black people out in the first place. You need to be able to change your culture and accommodate your culture. I'm not saying throw it away. I'm saying include other people's cultures, be accommodating of people to sit in white spaces. It's very hard in South Africa in 2020 for a black man to be excluded out of a former white spot or institution because the culture argument is being used. It's used in corporate South Africa to pick people. So whenever people don't get jobs, they'll say, no, he doesn't fit the culture. When players in cricket are told, are transferred to other unions or no longer being played, their answer is no, they have a bad attitude, i.e. you don't want to fit into the culture of the team. He's a disruptive element. And the reason why he's a disruptive element is because he grew up differently to you. That's the only difference. You're not willing to look at the substance of a man's argument, but you want to pinpoint the fact that he's different to you as a way to exclude him and say, no, he doesn't fit the culture. Just like how the greatest debate has always been a number 4 batsman needs to be a free-flowing batsman. He needs to be able to be comfortable on certain wickets or whatever it is. But when a player of color comes in and does it slightly different because that's how he's learned, it becomes a problem. Makhaya Ntini's action was seen to be a problem, but luckily he wasn't allowed to change it. Paul Adams' action was questioned, because it wasn't the norm. Whenever something's not the norm, it will always be told, no, it's not good enough, it's not what it is, because you're not used to it. And that's where in order for you to change that, you need to be able to acknowledge, and that's the issue. If you're not willing to acknowledge your privilege, if white South Africa is not willing to acknowledge that something's wrong, if the former white cricketers are not willing to acknowledge that something's wrong, CSA is not willing to acknowledge that something is off, then it's fine. And they'll use the argument that, no, we've had black administrators, we've had black leaders in the system, but at the end of the day, when you go look up in the structure, that structure could be led by white faces or white voices, or that person feels not big enough or not comfortable enough, doesn't have the authority to make the tough decisions because he's also sitting there in a seat and just wants to protect a seat for a job, which I don't judge. And those are the type of things that need to change. It's mindsets need to change. You can't deny a child an opportunity because he looks different to you or he's different to you. And that's the issue that South Africa has as a society, is that these institutions are there to protect what they have, but they don't want to be able to move forward and try to be better and grow better by bringing in different voices and different experiences.
Okay, Ravi, I want you to give your last sentiments, and I think we can definitely do another show on this where we come back together and continue this conversation, and we can get to more of the comments. Um, uh, but give me your last words here. Moving forward, what does South Africa do moving forward?
Okay, so there's a couple things that you both of you thankfully brought up during the limited time that we've had together, and the one thing that just sort of still gives me a little bit of an itch till this day is seeing a number of South Africans cut their Springbok jerseys that they pay their hard-earned money for. My sentiment around that is I accept their resignation as Springbok fans. I accept their resignation as Proteas fans. I don't want to have solidarity with those individuals. I'm happy for them to be out of the system if they don't want to support the Springboks. They don't want to support the Proteas. They don't want to support Bafana. Whatever it is that they're against, cut your jerseys up. I'm glad. We're no longer in solidarity. Now, moving forward. As I said before, open dialogue. Definitely there needs to be an open forum. I challenge Graeme Smith to do the following. Have an open discussion. The main people that need to be in that discussion is himself, Ashwell, Thami Tsolekile, and everybody that's come forward to have a discussion. I think overnight his portfolio as director of cricket has shifted from a performance-driven mandate to a culture-driven mandate. And it's actually his responsibility now to address these stories that have come out, these grievances, as a CEO, as a director of any company would. It's time that Graeme Smith plays a very commercial and culture-orientated role by having these discussions. And I know it sounds airy-fairy right now, but bear with me for a second. Can you imagine an open dialogue, Truth and Reconciliation Commission style, where all of these players have an opportunity to air their grievances with the people or with the environment, the administrators they had to first-hand experience with? I think it's about high time we do that. We should stop skirting around the issue. I think Thami said it. The one thing that stood out for me out of the 3 interviews that Thami Tsolekile did in the last 2 weeks was the fact that he wanted to move forward. It sounded like a genuine inclination to move forward. He's had the opportunity to tell a story. He's told a story. He's become a trending item on Twitter. The powers that be are aware of it now. Now it's time to take this to the next step. He's moved the needle. Now it's time for the remaining parties to do the same as well. Acknowledge his grievances. Have a discussion. Acknowledge that they were wrong and move forward. And that goes without saying for everybody. That's the only way we'll become a championship winning team. If literally everybody is on the same page, we get every sort of utterance, every sort of thing that has impacted our playing careers. We put it on the table. All of those toxic elements. We discuss it in detail, and then we move it up so we can actually take this game forward.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you, Ravi. I think we need to come to some sort of a charter, a cricketing charter for South Africa, where we know this is who we are as South Africa. And that goes on to what this culture camp needs to do as well. But the former players need to do it because they need to lead us. We need to listen from our elders and allow them to guide us in this. And white cricketers need to talk too, as to the fears.
Mm-hmm.
It must be tough to lose your position, and it must be hard. And they must speak about it openly, name opportunities and situations where things have happened, and then instead of being defensive, open up, and then we come out with a charter to say that this is cricket in South Africa up until we reach a point where we're producing a pipeline of players that look and feel like the country. This is the way the country is going to go. And if they agree to it, they'll have to defend it when other people come and say, why are you using the quota system or the transformation system? Or why is so-and-so being picked on so-and-so? And we say, no, we sat on this day in September in 2020, and this is what we all agreed. And this is the direction we're moving forward in. And once we have that charter, it's an easy way to pick a team. You can pick it on merit, because everybody understands what's going on, and there's a communication situation, because all these stories coming out stem from the fact that nobody wants to talk in cricket, in South Africa, in the Proteas setup, in the selection panels, anywhere else, because all this can be solved by saying, "Hey, dude, here's the reason why you're dropped. This is what we're trying to move on and trying to push to, and this is and it's about continual getting people in the loop continuously, touching base with them, and I think that's the job of the new Test captain's going to have an incredible job because he's going to have to do that, and Graeme's going to have to do that too, to be able to notify players at every tour in the 32 that he selected for this culture camp to say, this is where you stand, this is where I think you're going to fit, and be honest and be open. And even if it's a call along the lines of no, but based on the or whatever transformation rules, these are the reasons why you're not necessarily in the setup. You're going to have to wait for your opportunity. That's fine. That's okay. It is sport. It is sport in South Africa, and that's the cross we have to carry as South Africans. No other nation in the world has this cross to carry. We have to carry it because of what happened in the past, and by us not acknowledging that, says a lot about who we are as a nation and where we are as a fabric right now. The Rainbow Nation fabric is very shaky, and one way to bring it back is to have conversations like these that Ravi said, and for people to know. I'd like a camera in, no media presence, so we can just listen, no commentary, just listening to what these stories are, because there's a healing and a closure that the South African population also need. Because we've heard about all these stories, but if it's in a closed door, we will take their word for it, but then we want to see it all. So everyone it's a social contract. We're a stakeholder for CSA right now, and an important one as that, and they need to acknowledge us too, because things that happen in the dark will come to the light, but things that stay in the light will shine forever because everyone's seen it. And that's all I ask.
So guys, that's all we have for you today on the show. And I think that the main message is here that the only way we're going to get through this and the only way we move forward is together. South Africa has always been talking about that. We can see the hashtags, Warner's One, more than just cricket. We can see what we are about. When we come together as a nation, we are powerful. And I think that is what we need to do to go moving forward. So guys, thank you a lot for tuning in. It was a very good show, I feel, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know, give us your feedback on what you want to improve and what topics you would like us to talk about in the future. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, click the notification bell, all of those great things. Don't forget to download our latest issue of the magazine, because obviously we want to bring you some great exclusive content, tell you this untold stories in South African cricket. So download our latest magazine as well. Guys, thank you a lot for watching, and we will see you again very, very soon. Cheers, guys.
Good night.